I'm going to be making a ribbon lay. Actually, it's a ribbon and yarn lay. It's crocheted, so hence I have a crochet needle here. Let's see, this is a size 6 crochet hook. So just a basic crochet hook. I do have some various yarns and ribbon here. So this is a rat tail ribbon. It's more like a cord ribbon. This is a 1/16 inch cord. It is ivory white. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and cut. This is going to be the inside of the lay, or the lay itself. And I've cut 3 strands here. Let's see, this is approximately 2 yards of this cord. 3 strands of it, which will make the center of the lay itself. So everything will be based around these 3 strands. So the color doesn't really matter because it's going to be covered, but in this case I just happen to have a big spool of this. This is what I'm going to use for the core. For the outside, I've decided to choose a variety of colors of ribbon. Now this ribbon is 1/8 inch ribbon. This happens to be more like a maroon, dark pink color. I've also chosen a light rose pink color, so it's got a hint of purple and pink to it. Again, 1/8 inch there. I've chosen a dark green, or a hunter green, 1/8 inch. And then I've also have 2 other colors of green. I have like a light seafoam green and a bright green. These happen to be the Offray brand. You can get this at any like hobby store, arts and crafts store, so Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby. This is going to be a brand that you can find in those stores. Typically what I like to do is I like to look for the sales, so you can get like 1 spool for $1 a piece. And these are both 1/8 inch ribbon as well. These are 10-yard spools, whereas these are 100-yard spools, so these are much larger spools. These I got at a wholesale retail store, so they just had all the variety of colors. I forget how much I paid for each one of these spools, but it of course will be a lot more than say the dollar spool here. But I want to say it was like $5. And I could be wrong because I bought these a while ago. Now the one problem when getting spools like this at the store that I go to, you are limited to what colors they have available, whereas Joann's or the hobby stores, there's a little bit more variety but not the same quantity. This you can get the quantity but not the same variety. So there's pluses and minuses to both sides. You can also go on like Amazon or online and find them as well. So there's really like open possibilities with the colors. This for this lay I'm choosing to kind of stick with like the pink and green colors, more of the natural colors that you would find. In addition to that, I did say it was going to be a mix of ribbon and yarn. So the yarn element that I'm going to do in this lay is I'm adding a bit of brown. Now this is a brown eyelash yarn. Let me pull this out. This is what it looks like, and each strand, it's called eyelash because of it looks like an eyelash. You have the cord itself for the ribbon, but then you have the frills that come off of it, more like an eyelash look. So I have this brown eyelash yarn. We will also be crocheting this onto the lay itself. So to start the lay, it's relatively easy. I'm going to start with the ribbon, so I'm going to put the yarn on the side. So to start, just choose one of the colors. In this case, I'm going to start with this pink because it's already unraveling. I'm going to put the other colors aside. Now to crochet, I'm not going to go into too much detail as far as crocheting and starting. That could be a separate video all on its own. But the basic concept, you create a slip knot. So essentially what I've done is I've created a loop, and so the tail has crossed over the strand itself. I'm going to create a loop around my finger, take that loop, put it through the one I've created, tighten it. So now I've created a slip knot. Okay, that slip knot, I'm going to use the crochet hook, put that through the crochet hook. And what I've done with the rat tail, I've taken all 3 strands. I've created a good tail to it because this tail is what is going to be used to tie the lei together. So I don't want to crochet on this piece. I want to stick through this knot and through the rest of the 3 strands. So again, all 3 strands knotted together. I'm going to start crocheting from here through the rest of the strand. So with my crochet hook, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook all 3 strands just to start with, to secure my pink to the rest of the rat tails, just like so, right? So I have my loop again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 5. 3, 4, 5. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, you could see I'm a little bit sloppy with my chains. Some are smaller, whereas towards the end I got larger loops. That's fine. It doesn't have to be precise, because what's going to happen is as you progress through, it's going to start clumping together, so you're really not going to notice those inconsistencies in your crochet hook, in your chain. So this is kind of a nice thing for beginners to practice crocheting, because you don't have to have that same precision as you might with like a scarf, or like even more advanced projects like a sweater, that sort of thing, or even stuffed animals. And so what I've done is I've chained 5. I'm going to go around all 3 and go around all 3, hook, and then connect my chain. So I now have a loop of 5 on my rat tail. Okay, and what you would do is you're going to repeat this process over and over until you've exhausted your ribbon. Now in general, I like to keep going for the most part for the entire spool. So in this case, this is 100 yards. I might put all 100 on here. With how many colors, it's going to vary. So like in my case, I have 5 colors. I'm going to actually need less yarn or ribbon yarn. Whereas if I'm only going to do like 3 colors, I might need more, right? So overall, I don't know how many yards of ribbon and yarn I will go through, but it's going to vary depending on how long of a lei you want, how full of a lei you want, and how many colors or strands of ribbon yarn you're going to be using. So I'm just going to keep going. Repeating this process of creating these loops, the chains, and then catching all 3 of the rat tail, going all the way through until I am pretty satisfied. The more color you want on the lei, the more you're going to want to put on here. So if you want more of the pink colors to stand out, you're going to use more of the pink ribbon. If you want more green color, you're going to obviously put more green, saturate it with more green ribbon or yarn. In my case, I'm going to kind of play it by ear, see what catches my eye, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to continue creating the chains and hooking it to my rat tail. One thing to kind of keep in mind is this hook, because you're catching the ribbon, The the ribbon sometimes doesn't want to stay in the hook, so you will have instances where you're trying to hook it and it has a mind of its own. So just kind of keep that in mind. Let me undo some of this to make it easier on myself. Now that I've reached the end of the ribbon, this strand of ribbon, you can see I've spaced it out between each chain. I want a little bit of space between each of the chains because as I'm doing my second strand, I need to be able to hook between each chain. So here is one chain, and then the second chain is here. I need to be able to hook my crochet hook and catch the 3 strands here, right? So you need some room because as you add additional colors, this is going to become more full. And you're going to just continue to scrunch the colors, the strands together. And so you want a little bit of space, similar to how I have it here, all the way through. If it's bunched up a little bit tighter, that's fine. You just need to be able to move the strands around so you can catch in between the chains. So that way you can see here, you can, as you're spreading it out, you can see where you're needing to catch the rat tails. At the very end, all I've done is I've created a larger loop with my slip knot, right? I've just created a larger loop. I'm not going to cut my yarn or my ribbon quite yet, just in case as I'm adding on, if I decide, hey, I want to go ahead and have more of this pink ribbon, I can just go ahead and continue on shrinking this knot down and then creating more chains and hooking it on. But since I'm not entirely sure if I have enough, if this is going to meet my wants, I'm just going to leave the ribbon intact, not cut it, leave it intact with a larger loop, so then that way I don't lose sight of it. Here's the rest of the spool. So you can see I've worked quite a bit of that ribbon down. I'm just going to quickly wind up my excess here, and what you can do is just loop this around so it doesn't accidentally come undone. So I know this is that pink, and that is as far as I'm going to go with that color for right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to return back to the starting point. So again, I have my excess for tying off the lay, I have my knot, so this is my starting point, and here is the pink that I've started, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rose light pink color, and I'm going to start this one next. So to start it, it's the same process as the fuchsia darker pink. I'm just undoing some of this ribbon to give me some working ribbon to start with. And again, you can see how much I've had on this spool versus where I ended up with this fuchsia color. So I know I'm going to go through quite a bit of this to start with. Oh, I lost my end here. Quickly find my end. Here's my end. Okay, so again, making a slip knot to start with. There's my slip knot. Shrink it down a little bit. Here's my crochet hook. So in order to start this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook this to all 3 strands. You can, if you would like now, hook it to one. I prefer to have the volume of the cord, so I hook it to all three. But if you don't need that volume, let's say you're using a quarter or a half inch, more like a half inch gross grain ribbon as the center, you can do that. You won't need 3 strands of the ribbon, you would just need one. But a half inch gross grain ribbon, as you're crocheting it, would bunch up to about the same as the 3 rat tails, right? So just depending on what you're doing, what your preference is, how full do you want the core to look. When I say core, I will show you towards the end of the video. So again, I hooked it on. I am making my chain. One thing to note is, so this is 5, but let's say you accidentally make 6. That's not gonna hurt it. In some of these chains I've done on accident 6, some I've done 4. That's fine. In a lei sense, these colors are to represent little flowers in the lei, and in nature, no flower is identical. They're not going to be the exact same shape, size. So having some of those variety, like I said, in the size of the chain, in the your each loop, it's not going to be as noticeable, because when you have it bunched up like this, you really can't see that. And again, like I said, in nature, no two things are exactly the same. So this is the imperfections in each of the hooks, loops, chains. It's going to be fine. It just represents more naturalistic floral symmetry, right? So again, I've made my chain. I'm going to go ahead and loop it, but actually I need to loop it. So here's my chain. I need a catch in between the first chain. So here's my starting loop here. Starting loops here. My first chain I caught here. With this color, I'm going to catch in between those two, in between the starting loop and my end of my first chain. I'm going to go in between, catch all 3, and connect my chain here. So you could see color number 1, starting loop, color number 2, starting loop. Here's where I hook in between color number 1, and there's my chain. So chain 1, chain 2. Okay, and I'm just going to repeat this process all the way through until I reach the end. So again, chain, here's my first loop, here's the second, here's the middle. I'm going to hook it there. So you can see here's 1, middle, 2, here's the middle. So I'm going to go in the middle and hook it there. Now you don't have to worry about the spacing on the second color, because your spacing is determined by the spacing of the first one. The first color. So middle, here's the start, middle, and that's where I'm going to hook. So this is the lei. I finished crocheting all the ribbon and yarn onto the lei. I've also cleaned off the end so there's no extra to match the green ribbon. Now I ended up using about 40 yards of each color. I did have originally a little bit more pink, the fuchsia and the rose pink ribbon crocheted onto this. I've removed the excess to match the green. So again, about 40 yards of each color. The last step that I'm going to do, or one of the last steps I'm going to do, is clean up these extra loose ends where I've had to tie extra ribbon onto the pieces that I was crocheting. And this is fairly simple. You can hide it within, because luckily you have all the yarn. So all I'm doing is I'm running my crochet hook down the core of the lei. Again, the core is running against the rat tail yarn on the inside. So all I'm doing is I'm weaving my hook in between all the crocheted strands. I am going to catch the loose end and pull it through. And so you can actually see it popped out down here, whereas before it was up here. Now the end is actually here, but as I straighten the yarn out, you can't even see it anymore in the lei. So you can hide the loose ends that way. So I think I had that dark green one. I'm checking to see if I have any other ones that need to be hidden. I have a light green one right here. So I'm going to do the same thing. This is significantly shorter, so I don't need to go too far into weaving it in, but let's see. Got my hook. Here's the loose strand. I'm just going to help hook it onto the crochet hook. As I am pulling the hook down, I am rotating it slightly, so then that way it catches that loose end. So again, here's the loose end, here's my hook. I am going to feed it, and then while holding it, I am slightly rotating it. So rotating the crochet hook locks it in, and pulling it down, you no longer see that loose end. It is in the core of the lei, tucked away. I think that is all the loose ends. One of the things I like to do is I like to put a kukui nut at the end. It gives it a nice clean look, and then that way when you tie the lei together, you have the kukui nuts. So that would also hide all the starting ends, these pieces here. This can all be tucked into the kukui nut, so you actually won't see that. And this side, same thing. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So here I have a kukui nut lei. This is from I believe the ABC store. This is $7, but you could see how many kukui nuts you get off of one lei. So I actually will dismantle this lei to get the kukui nuts. There we go. So I untie it. I don't need that. And you can simply, all this is a kukui nut strand on a ribbon itself. So you could pull the kukui nut off, and then a knot separating each kukui nut. So you can undo the knot, or if you're lazy like me and I don't plan on reusing this as a lei, you can always just cut at the nut, between the nut and the knot, and then pull the next kukui nut off. In this case, I do notice this side will slide off, and I only need the two, so I don't really have to destroy this kukui nut lei. I will leave this intact. So here are the two kukui nuts. Now, this is a little bit of a test to try and string these on. One is fairly simple, 2 gets challenging, 3 is almost impossible. So let's see if I'm able to do this. I think I have better luck going this way. And I don't know if you noticed the kukui nut, I like to consider it almost like a heart shape. One side is going to be slightly indented. This side has a little bit of a point, just ever so slightly. So if you feed your cord from the indent to the point, it automatically will funnel your ribbon to that point. If you go the reverse, your ribbon will most likely get caught in the peaks of this side of the heart. So I always try and find the point, and that's the side I want the ribbon to exit out from. Now that I have one in, I am going to do the same with the second one. And in order to help maximize the space of the hole, what I do is I grab both ends of the string, the rat tail, and pull it taut to maximize the hole of the kukui nut, the space available. And then I'm ever so slightly going to try and feed the second one through, and hopefully find it on the other side. I do see it. Let's see. I might need to burn the tip of the rat tail to make it hard and point. It's starting to fray, so it is getting hard. Let me go ahead and get a candle. I'm going to melt the ends of the rat tail to make it all a single piece rather than starting to fray it. It is becoming a little bit tough to thread these pieces into the kukui nut. So let me go do that real quick. Okay, so I am back. I have a candle here I've lit. So I am carefully going to melt the ends of the rat tail with the candle, so and try not to get anything else. Here's my candle. Have the rat tail, keeping my fingers a good distance away, so I don't want to put it over the flame. I'm just going to put the end over the flame quickly, and it's melting it. There we go, that's it. So I don't even need to like stick it on the flame and like catch it on fire. That's enough of a melt to get it to join together. So let's try again. Let's try doing it this way. I'm going to try and melt the 3 strands together. Okay, and that seemed to do the trick. I am going to repeat that step. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the 3 strands, I'm staggering the ends, and then I'm going to melt them together to create a point with all three. So I'm going to melt the first one just to finish off the edge. Now I'm going to heat up the longer one with the second longest strand. I'm going to heat those two up and melt those together. Okay, now that I've done that, I am going to add the third strand and melt that together, but let me finish off the end first. And I'm going to place that so it's almost like a pyramid, and I'm staggering the end, and I'm going to melt that together now. Like so. So all three strands are now connected. Same thing. Find the point of the kukui nut. So this is the point. I'm going to string through the opposite end out of the point. There's the point coming out. So if I pull on this, it should get all three strands. It's a lot easier if you're only using a 1/2 inch ribbon as your core, because then you're only pulling out. You cut the ribbon at an angle and you would pull the tip of the ribbon out and the rest will follow. So you don't have to worry about melting ends necessarily with a 1/2 inch gross grain ribbon as the core, but in my case, because I'm using 3 separate rat tail strings, that's why. Another thing, I am also going to remove this knot that I've used at the end to hold everything together, because I no longer need this to keep everything in place. I do have the kukui nut, so this is just a undoing of my knot. Okay, finish stringing the kukui nut all the way in. You would put the knot on this side of the kukui nut, so it would hold the kukui nut in place. So I'm quickly going to do that. It does not need to be a big knot, just one bigger than the whole of the kukui nut to prevent it from sliding. Like so. This is the side that I started with. I have all the loose ends. I'm just going to give this a quick trim so it's not as long. I don't need it as long, so I'm going to just trim this like so. So anyone looking at the lay, it won't be as noticeable. You won't be able to see all the edges there. I'm going to knot this side of the lay as well to avoid the kukui nut from moving. And then this one has a little bit of overage from the ends. I'm just going to give that a quick trim. There you go. Done with the candle. I'm going to put that off on the side. And here you go. This is the final lay. When you would put it on, you can simply tie the ends together and make a nice little bow. And the bow can either hang at the back of the neck or on the side. If it's hanging on the side, you would make the bow like such. And then that way you can hang it on the individual. I am going to cut the ends of the rat tail that I melted together to make it a clean 3 strands. I am also going to cut these so they're the same length, because right now, if you look at it, the tail one is significantly longer, almost twice the length of the other side. So I'm going to cut that and clean those up. Actually, I'm not done with the candle, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to melt the ends of these. So let me bring the candle back. Just give this a quick melt. Keep it from fraying. Again, you don't want to stick the entire yarn in the flame. You don't want the black burnt look to it. So you're just going to hold it close enough that the heat from the flame will melt it. And because it's fine fibers that make up the ribbon, it's, what is this? So maybe a 1/4 inch away from the flame and it's already melting it. So that's close enough. That's good enough to melt it and finish off those strands. So this is the final lay. Hope you guys like it. You can always change out the colors to match. This happens to be for a baby shower. I do have 2 baby showers, one for a girl, one for a boy. This happens to be for the girl. Rather than doing the whole bows that you can buy in the store where it's a boy or it's a girl and the mom and dad, or soon to be mom and dad, wear it. Instead, I am going with the lace, and I'm going to put actually a different bow on this that's customized for each of the couples. So this happens to be for the mother who is having a girl. So I did pinks in the lay for her. For the boy, I will probably be changing this up, so it's going to have a little bit of blue and white instead of the pinks. So you can always change up the colors to match whatever the occasion or the gender, the individual that you're giving the lay to. You can always change up the colors to fit them. Yellow, orange, greens are usually safe for the boys or guys. The pinks, purples, those are always a nice touch for the females or the girls. Make the lay longer for adults. If it's for a child, you can always make the lay slightly smaller. This lay is probably, let's see, 40 inches. So this is a 40-inch lay. At the end of the day, you can make it longer if you have a taller individual or an adult versus a child, you might want to make that a little bit smaller so it doesn't hang so low on them. Kind of keep that in mind. And then keep in mind, like I mentioned, the core of the lei. You can't see it now. It is pretty compact in there. Even if you try move things around, you're not going to easily be able to see it, but you will see the core at the ends. So you do want to kind of keep that in mind to select a color that will match the overall lei at the end, because that is visible only at this point. Another option is not to even do a bow, just simply knot it and use this as tails and put a nicer bow at the end. That's actually what I'm going to end up doing for these leis in the future. So keep an eye out for that video. I am going to make another bow showing how to make that bow and finishing off the leis with that. You can also use the bows for other purposes, but most likely, most of the time I use this bow for leis. I will show you how to do that in an upcoming video. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you want to see a different lei, different color combination, let me know, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.